This talk kind of follows on from meeting in troubled times. Again, we're now towards the end of December, Christmas, looking forwards and backwards. And last time I mentioned Jōko's pretty well-known saying, "Give up hope." And thought, okay, yeah, that would be interesting. Let's investigate that a little bit more. There's the very well-known talk of that name, which actually hadn't run for a little while. So coming back to that, thinking, oh yeah. And in actual fact, in many senses it's a wonderful talk, but it's also quite a difficult one, in the sense that I think it's one of those where it's very easy to go wrong, where actually you can dig a hole. You can disappear down a hole and go, oh yeah, I see it all now. So, having said that, give up hope. What do we mean? The talk starts with Jōko saying she's just had some bad news. Somebody she knows, old friend of hers, has committed suicide. It's a difficult thought. And of course, when we're thinking of suicide, why would we think that somebody had killed themselves? Because they'd lost hope. Lost hope in the future, lost hope of any possibility. So I'll end it all. So is that where we're going to be coming from with this? And of course Jōko gets straight in there. No, the exact opposite. So today, what I want to talk about is having no hope. Sounds terrible, doesn't it? Actually, it's not terrible at all. A life lived with no hope is a peaceful, joyous, compassionate life. As long as we identify with this mind and body, which we all do, we hope for things that we think will take care of them. We hope for success. We hope for health. We hope for enlightenment. We have all sorts of things we hope for. All hope, of course, is about sizing up the past and projecting it into the future. We might want to come back and think about, what does she mean there by as long as we identify with the mind and the body? Okay. So wham, straight in our face. And in a sense, that's very seductive. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Stop hoping for anything. What's going to be the problem? Expect nothing? What's going to be the problem? Yeah, but... And obviously this is where Barry Magid's, again, wonderful book title, Ending the Pursuit of Happiness, kind of kicks off from. It's this endless thinking we can fix, thinking we can bend reality to fit in with the way that we want to, which is the source of so much of our trouble, so much of our suffering. Okay, I see. So he's just following along Jōko's line there. Well, he is and he isn't. And part of that's to do with what we think about, we think we mean in terms of the past and the future, and what we think we mean by talking about identifying with this mind and this body. Obviously you can see there, Jōko's just saying, well, just think about the present moment, or rather just experience the present moment. The past's gone, and this is all good Buddhist stuff, isn't it? The past's gone, the future's not here. Be in the present. And to that extent, it's 100% sound advice. Our practice is basically experiencing this moment. And yet, of course, when we start to make that into a thing, and yet, of course, when we say, well, no, this is what we should be doing, hang what we are doing, hang who we actually are, hang how we actually live our lives, no, this is what we should be doing, and suddenly we're opening up gaps again. We close one gap, we open another gap. And if it's just about experiencing this and this and this, it's supposed to be about my life as it is. My life as I encounter it. Well, my life as I encounter it is a life of hoping. Okay, it's clearly more complicated than we might think. Trying to explain it, Jōko talks about a classic Dogen story. So this is in the 12th century. Dogen, young monk, he's gone off to China. He's gone to study. He's going to answer his great question about practice, which in our terms translates kind of as, well, if I am all right, as I am, if I am enough, as I am, then why practice? What's the need of practice? What's practice for? And so he tours the monasteries. And one of his great insight experiences, just aha moments, isn't, rolling clouds or thunder or light filling the sky. So when he meets the cook at a monastery, old guy, same age as me, mid-late 60s, and he's the cook. He's responsible for the kitchen. And he's not some remote guy shouting, wearing a big hat. He's an old, bent, brown monk, and he's laying out mushrooms in the sunshine to dry so that they'll be good for later, good for preserving, make a fantastic stock, actually give their, to be honest, pretty tasteless meals some flavour. And he's got to do this right. And Dogen says, well, why are you doing this? Why don't you get some assistants to do it? Come on, you're the head of the kitchen. He goes, if I don't do it, who else can do it? Well, why are you doing it now? The sun's blazing down. You're clearly in a bad way, sweating, getting hot. If I don't do it now, when else can I do it? And at one level that sounds completely daft, but yes. Actually, this is who we all are. This is where we all are. We have this chance to live this actual life as I'm encountering it. A life that isn't just entirely centred on what I fancy in this moment or my thought of this moment, but my actual life, which is a life, well, the Tenzo's, the cook's life is absolutely central. It's vital to the monastery. If the job doesn't get done, if it doesn't get done properly, chaos ensues. Nobody gets fed. And Dogen writes this, one of his key texts is advice to the cook, and he goes through in great detail about what the cook should do and what the cook shouldn't do, because it's important, because it's a wonderful example of care, of actually offering care. Let's read a few of Jōko's words. Yeah. If I do not do it now, when else can I do it? That's quoting the monk. So then Jōko says, only I can take care of the self from morning to night. Only I can receive life. And it's this contact, second by second, which Dogen Zenji is talking about as he describes the day of the Tenzo, the cook. Take care of this, take care of that, and that. Not just washing the rice, but doing it carefully, grain by grain, not just throwing the water out. each bite we take of our food, each word I say, each word you say, each encounter, each second. That's it. Not chanting with your mind somewhere else, not half doing the dishes, not half doing anything. But living this life, this is the only moment we have, this moment and this moment. If not now, then when? And if not me, then who? Nobody else can live my life for me. This is centrally important. Meeting my life as it is. And an important aspect of this life is offering care, because it's by offering care that I'm actually engaging with the world. That might be care for others, it might be just care for what I'm doing. Placing the mushrooms just so. And when that's maybe not my best thing in this moment, then it's experiencing that resistance. Back to a bigger container. What can I hold of my experience of this life? And what's the alternative to that? Is there any alternative to that? Jōko says, and now, sadly, I see so many people dreaming their lives away. Sometimes a man or a woman dreams of an ideal partner. They dream and they dream, but when we live life in dreams and hopes, interesting, she's equating dreams and hopes here, then what life can offer, that man or woman sitting right next to us, right here, really here, actually here, ordinary, unglamorous, the wonder of that life escapes us because we're hoping for something special, for some ideal. And what Dogen Zenji is telling us is that real practice has nothing to do with that. It comes back to what am I hoping for from my practice? What am I expecting from my practice? What's my practice for? Great. So where's the problem? I think the problem is what I was alluding to just now, where we open up a gap by saying should be this way, shouldn't be that way. And what I see as my life, because hang on, there's a my life here. Nobody else can live my life. Oh, so this is your life separate from everybody else. Let's read a little bit more. My life is absolute. No one can live it for me. No one can feel it for me. No one can serve it for me. My work, my suffering, my joy are absolute. There's no way, for instance, that you can feel the pain in my toe or I can feel the pain in your toe. No way. You can't swallow for me. You can't sleep for me. And that's the paradox. In totally owning the pain, the joy, the responsibility of my life, if I see this point clearly, then I'm free. I have no hope. If I have no hope, I have no need for anything else. And suddenly you realise that this is about cutting out. Why? Well, then I'll have no need of anything. And back to one of Barry's favourite little sayings. If you ain't got nothing, you ain't got nothing to lose. There's a kind of sense of safety in that. Yeah. Get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Then nothing can touch me. I'll be in control because nothing can touch me. And then I find that weirdly, in trying to be just this moment, and trying just to live my life, I've cut myself off from everything and everybody. And actually it's, yes, obviously at one level it's absolutely true to say, no one can live for me, no one can feel it for me. You can't feel the pain in my toe, or I can feel the pain in your toe. Yes, but that's not actually true, is it? In a richer sense, we come back to mother kiss it better. We experience each other's pain. We empathise with each other's pain. We can transform each other's pain. We feel together. That's what being not separate is. That's what empathy is. And okay, mother and child is maybe a key example of that, but it's what we all do all the time, not separate. I'm not trying to be immaculate and absolutely self-contained and no danger. I'm safe because nothing can touch me. And if Jōko sounds like she's saying that, and there is this whiff of that more than one occasion, what does she say? No need for anything else. But we are usually living in vain hope. And vain is always a word which Jōko uses again and again, and it kind of rings slight alarm bells. Vain hope, because, okay, vain has these two interesting senses in English. You can say, oh, I tried to do that, but all my efforts were in vain. It didn't work out. It was impossible. It never would have worked, but hey, I tried. That kind of vain. But there's also, obviously, this very moralistic, vain. You're so vain. You think you're wonderful. You think you're beautiful. You think, oh, no, vain. It's a very kind of Protestant, judgment. And there's a lot of places where Jōko invites us to judge ourselves. And don't really feel that's helpful, because then we're back into thinking, I'm bad, I'm lacking, oh my God, I should be like this, I shouldn't be like how I am. And we're not enough. And this isn't okay. And life is a problem. It's complicated. We heal one gap, we open another gap. As I say, I can't really say at the end of the day that I have a very totally clear, definite idea whether Jōko was totally clear about what she was saying in these things. She was giving a talk out of where she was, when she was. But reading these at a distance, this is, 30 years ago. We maybe have to be a little bit careful in how we're hearing, how we're taking this. But we are usually living in vain hope for someone or something that will make my life easier, more pleasant. We spend most of our time trying to set life up in a way so that will be true, when contrary-wise, the joy of our life is just in totally doing and just bearing what must be borne, in just doing what has to be done. It's not even what has to be done, it's there to be done, so we do it. And really maybe the big headline is that what we're doing here is she seems to be inviting us to entirely bracket out desire, my energy, my being in the world, my engagement with the world. And in terms of the monastic tradition, which she was trained in, that makes perfect sense. Because remember, the basic Buddhism is cut off desire, end of problem. End of life, end of world, end of problem. And that our deal is no separation, part of life. That desire is something to be worked with. Sometimes that's helpful, constructive, sometimes it's a disaster. Let's find out. Let's experience, let's understand this. Let's see how I am, how I work, how we work together. And it invites us to go down that split of dichotomy of either I'm selfless and that's good, or I'm selfish and I'm bad, because we're all separate. But if the heart of our teaching is non-separation, then that dichotomy doesn't apply like that. We have to try and understand what it means to be not separate. And that's not in a monkish way. And of course, if I'm leading this life of service, which Jōko talks about, which she does, and sometimes it's easy to read and think, well, she's just telling us to sit on her arse the whole time, isn't she? No, I mean, she's actually talking about a genuine life of service. If my own wishes, my own desires become irrelevant, then what else is there to do but help others? Fair, true in that sense. But again, we get tied up in this business which Barry, because his job is basically working with people whose job is to heal, to help other people, talks about saving all beings minus one. I'm going to save all beings. I'm going to be so selfless. I'm going to have no needs, no desires of my own. And then, well, no. You're just making problems for yourself. You're going to be a disaster. You're going to end up hurting people. Let's work this through. Let's work out how your desire works in with trying to help people, actually. Saving all beings minus one. Saving all beings except yourself. And we might think about how we ask, what we ask of people in the world in relation to that. And the people that we classically ask to do that are mothers, aren't they? Because actually the baby has to be fed, the baby has to be changed. These are not optional. And for all of us, sometimes life is like that, caring responsibilities. No, I'm sorry, there's no choice. You don't want to do it? Well, tough. But then we rely on people, and we rely on people taking on responsibilities, which in ways which are actually not healthy, not kind to anybody, because a mother isn't a milk and nappy machine. A mother is, the big job of mothering is actually making this human being together with yourself, engaging, relating, showing, playing, coming together. And you can't do that by self-negation. So Jōko did tell us we all suffer, and we all know we suffer, to suffer intelligently. And I think I'm quoting Barry properly when he said, well, maybe we should say desire intelligently as well. It's not about cutting off desire, it's about learning to desire intelligently. How do we work with our desire, just in the same way that we work with our suffering? So maybe we could say, well, let's hope intelligently. Understand that a lot of our hopes will come to nothing. Understand that failure is a hugely important part of this process. That it's too neat just to say, give up hope. It's a good headline. It's a good, whoa, okay, let's think about this. It's a good invitation. But as it stands, it's also maybe an invitation to disaster. I was going to go on to the next section last time, and I ran out of time, and I realise I've effectively done the same this time, but I'll carry on for a few minutes. Because I wanted to relate this to something the philosopher Gramsci, Antonio Gramsci, says. Little saying, which is one of his best-known sayings, practice optimism of the will and pessimism of the intellect. And Gramsci said it in a very particular context. It's in the kind of late 1920s, early 1930s, when hopes of a social revolution in the kind of excitement of 1917 and the Russian Revolution and all the political transformations in Germany and France and the rest of it, looked like, things might be going to happen. And then, of course, they didn't. And being Italian by mid-1930s was firmly under the rule of Mussolini. Proper, down-the-line fascism. And so somebody who still is hoping for a positive transformation in society, what do you do? And this is really where optimism of the will and pessimism of the intellect comes from. The times are not propitious. Everything, is lining up to make it not possible. But do I give up? Well, no. I have to keep on. I have to practice what I believe in. We have that in Zen. We have these two wonderful images, trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon or shoveling snow down a well. Neither of these things are ever going to produce the outcome that we want, a bit like saving all beings, really. And yet, that doesn't mean we give up. That doesn't mean we abandon, in that sense, hope. We know that most of the transformations on a grand scale we are looking for are impossible. That doesn't mean that real, concrete possibilities don't exist ever. So we don't delude ourselves. We're realistic about the possibilities and about the actual situation in which we find ourselves. But that doesn't mean that we abandon hope. That doesn't mean that we're not looking for change, for the possibility of improvement. That can become something of a cliche, kind of fortune cookie motto. Oh yeah, times are bad, but whatever, carry on. It's only meaningful if we really engage with that, if we really live with the possibilities, the determination to practice, and a realistic idea of the difficulties. But I did read a really fantastic article that was actually talking specifically about this pair and said, well, actually, it'd be much better if we stood them on their head, if we talked about pessimism of the will and optimism of the intellect. There was a particular argument around this, but I thought, well, actually that applies quite well to our practice as well, because will, that's such a problematic idea for us anyway, isn't it? I know I don't have all the answers. I know that determination and intention do not guarantee success. I know that conviction is often just another name for delusion. And yet, I know that there is so much care which does take place in the world, in every moment, the kind of way that even at the anonymous level of the universe, I am sustained and supported, quite outside my conscious intention, my own, what I think of as my own desire. And that's before we get to the actual acts of care, the actual acts of love that I see all around me, that I practice with those close to me, that I receive, this giving and receiving, this meeting of others, this wonder that is way beyond any notion of will or intention per se, but it's just the love, the care that I witness every day in my own relationships, in the beauty of nature, in the determination of those around me. So the idea that any of this is dispensable, that we don't need it, that we should abandon any of this, well, clearly that's not what Jōko would actually mean. So if we do follow her invitation, perhaps we shouldn't give up hope, but perhaps we should try and hope intelligently. Let's sit for a bit.